Hello, and welcome to the Caribbean Business Podcast, brought to you by Assuage Business Development Limited. I'm your host, Rollocks, Director, Business Development and Sales at Assuage Business Development Limited, where we help SMEs penetrate local and regional markets. To those of you listening in from LinkedIn, YouTube, or Facebook, we are happy that you have joined us, and we do look forward to a very lively and informative discussion. The Caribbean Business Podcast seeks to provide a regular forum for discussion of issues pertinent to regional trade, highlight the significant role of regional service providers in economic growth and development, identify specific opportunities for exporting services intra-regionally and beyond, and also provide information on how-tos of exporting your products and services. This evening, we put the spotlight on services exporting. Many estimate that the real engine of growth for global trade will be the expansion of the services sector. Over the past century, the services sector has grown to play an increasingly important role in global business. Services account for 70% of global GDP in terms of value added. This trend offers great prospects for the Caribbean region that, as we know, is highly dependent on travel and tourism. The Caribbean is one of the most tourism-dependent regions in the world. According to the World Trade and Tourism Council, WTTC, travel and tourism is a key economic driver and foreign exchange earner, and the sector contributes over 15% of Caribbean GDP and supports nearly 14% of all employment. So I would say it's incumbent upon the region to capitalize on the service trend to expand services to the region and to the world, and to become players in the global service export trade. Today, and every first and third Tuesday, we will be hosting key players in the export trade sector and SMEs across the region who will share their experience and expertise to help us navigate the world of business expansion through exporting. To guide us this evening, we have a very qualified and I'd say experienced team of navigators. They are Lara Quentrall-Thomas, founder and chairman of Regency, Recruitment and Resources Limited, based in Trinidad and Tobago. Anthony Brand, CEO and partner at Coverpoint, RCM Business and Technology Solutions based in Belgium. And Jason Thomas, director and senior consultant at Personalized Quality System, also headquartered in Trinidad and Tobago. So each presenter is passionate about seeing SMEs become more successful exporters of products and services. So let's meet our presenters.
Today's presenters: Lara Quentrall-Thomas, MBA. Lara Quentrall-Thomas has more than 30 years' experience in recruitment and human resources management in both the United Kingdom and Trinidad and Tobago, including 25 of those years as an entrepreneur and company owner. As founder and chairman of Regency Recruitment and Resources Limited, Ms. Quentrall-Thomas has overall responsibility for more than 100 contract personnel employed with clients such as Exim Bank, NLCB, IBM, GE Oil and Gas, Cable and Wireless, and Rollocks. Her education includes an MBA and certificates in Industrial Relations, Labor Law, Mediation, Behavioral Economics, and Contract Law. Ms. Quentrall-Thomas currently serves as president of the Trinidad and Tobago Organization for Recruitment Service Providers and is immediate past president of the Trinidad and Tobago Coalition of Service Industries. She is a director of the International Women's Forum of Trinidad and Tobago, the National Training Agency, and Youth Business Trinidad and Tobago. She is a founding member and was the first president of the Association of Female Executives of Trinidad and Tobago, and is a former director of the Office of Procurement Regulation Board, Economic Advisory Board, and AmCham TNT. In addition, she is a member of the Employment and Labor Relations Committee of Trinidad and Tobago, Chamber of Commerce, Human Resources Management Association of Trinidad and Tobago, and the Trinidad and Tobago Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. She has been a member of Rotary International, the world's leading service organization, since 1999, and is currently a director of the Rotary Club of Central Port of Spain part of the Rotary District 7030, Southern Caribbean. Anthony Brand. Anthony has over 20 years' experience in manufacturing, utilities, logistics, and private sector development, as well as expertise in trade-related technical assistance, business development, and human corporate capacity building through training and organization change management. As CEO and partner at Coverpoint RCM Business and Technology Solutions, Anthony works on engaging SMEs, export development agencies, IPAs, and agricultural cooperatives in the CARICOM and Africa regions to expand international trade, including services and investment within the EU. Since 2017, Anthony has led several in-market export development and market research projects in the UK, Caribbean, and Europe. He has implemented bio-recruitment projects on behalf of Caribbean Export Development Agency, Trinidad and Tobago Manufacturers Association, as well as private clients including Tobago Gold Europe BV, among others.
Good afternoon. Hello and welcome to our panelists, Ms. Lara, Quentrall-Thomas, and Mr. Anthony Brand. Pleasure to have you on. We have two very qualified and experienced panelists here to guide us through this very timely, I would say, discussion around exporting services. So jumping right in, and maybe just to get a better sense of your own experience, maybe you can share just a couple bits about your experience in this whole area of export services before we jump into it. What has been your experience in this whole area? Maybe we can go with ladies first.
Okay.
Lara,
thank you very much.
Some persons are not even aware that they're exporting services.
Right. So thank you very much, Rawle, for the invitation. It's lovely to spend some time with you discussing this, as you said, very important topic. So for the last 25 years since I've been working here in Trinidad, I've been exporting my services without even realizing it until I got involved with the Gateway to Trade program through the TTCSI. And what I mean by that is that as a recruitment service provider, we recruit staff here in Trinidad to work for companies, and the companies are from around the world. So some of my biggest clients are based in Italy, in the UK, the United States, of course, Latin America. But I never really put two and two together and thought that I was exporting, because I would get a call and the company would say, look, we want to hire a team of people in Trinidad. No problem. I'd recruit them. We'd manage the payroll and benefits and all of the rest of it. And it was really only through the training and some of the exposure that I've had, particularly with TTCSI, I would say, that I really realized that I not only am I am exporting, I have been exporting pretty much since the beginning, because one of my very first clients was what was then Amoco, and of course a lot of the energy sector firms. So yeah, exporting services is an absolutely essential part of my business, and I think a lot of service providers, if they really look closer at their clients, who their customers are, they will realize that they're exporting as well. Exporting services is so easy to do, of course, because you can do it from your bedroom.
Yes, the internet, all the changes and advances certainly make that very easy, But Mr. Brand, what about you? What has been your experience in this particular area of exporting services?
Cheers, Rawle. Nice to be here with you and Lara. Thanks for inviting me. So my experience is coming out of the corporate sector in Belgium, but wanting to always work with the Caribbean, prompted me to start Coverpoint in 2017. And primarily, it was because of the fact that, of course, we have the CARICOM EU Economic Partnership Agreement, the EPA, which is a bilateral trade agreement between the CARICOM countries and Europe to help encourage trade and investment and, of course, the export of services. Being here as a Caribbean national here in Europe, I felt that I was, let's say, uniquely positioned to serve as an in-market catalyst for business development with firms from the Caribbean who want to get into Europe, and of course vice versa, firms that may be in Europe and want to start doing business with the Caribbean. So that's how I started in 2017.
Oh, that's great. And quite a lot of SMEs, everyone really is challenged at this time finding markets and expanding. Um, while we have you on, Mr. Brand, why should SMEs consider exporting services as a means of business expansion?
Okay, well, one thing, just don't forget to call me Anthony Rawle.
Oh, great. Anthony, great. We're on a first name basis. That's fine.
Yes. Well, I think that SMEs should be interested in exporting services, for instance, like to the EU, because of course, like the size of the market. The EU consists of 27 different countries, 447 million persons, an annual GDP of over like 15.7 trillion US dollars, a per capita GDP of like 31,000 US dollars. So it's actually a big market. So it means that there's actually a very big space where SMEs can potentially find new clients, new sources of revenue beyond what they may be enjoying currently in their local market or even regionally.
So there are much greater opportunities when you compare, let's say, the Caribbean region and its market with that market. We see it's really dwarfed in size. So I guess I can say, Lara.
Yes, yeah.
So Lara,
Please
what about
do.
you? Do you think this is a really legitimate opportunity for SMEs to expand, exporting their services?
I think a lot of it is very much dependent on the age and the stage of the organization, where it is in its maturity as a business. There are many SMEs, of course, that from the very beginning go global, and many that never go global. Most of us fall somewhere in between. I think it does depend on the service itself that you are selling, whether it is something that can translate across borders, whether it's something, for example, just to pick something, architectural services, you may need certain certification or qualifications or ISO standards. A lot of service providers do struggle to even enter some of the global markets because of the standard requirements, the ISO and other platforms accreditation. So even, something as simple as being a teacher or a doctor, sorry, that's not simple, that's a bit of an understatement, but you can't just, or a lawyer, we all know you can't train in England to be a lawyer and then go and practice law in America, right?
Yes.
There is a transition of training and so on that you have to do to be eligible to work in another country. And it's the same with services export. So you may have a fantastic service, but you have to do your research to make sure that what you're selling can be sold legally in another country. And when I say legal, I don't mean that it's drugs or weapons or anything, but just in terms of the rights and requirements, intellectual property, all of those things, the standards, because you may, think that you've got a fantastic service, but by the time you try and sell it to the Germans or the Colombians or the Canadians, it's a completely different market, not just from what you're selling, but what the customers want as well. So I think fundamentally anybody should be exporting anywhere, but you can't just, spend a set of money and jump into a market without doing your research, talking to people who've made that journey. And I think that's where people like Anthony are so helpful, because, if you talk to people who have transitioned to a new culture, to a new business environment, whether as an expatriate or as a business exporter, that's really helpful. And that's why, investing in the research and the preparation is so critical. And I would say start small. I would say start regionally, because there's a lot of cultural connections within, of course, the English-speaking Caribbean. We have so many similarities. And if you can master that, then feel a bit more confident, go to the North American market and sort of work your way outwards. But it does depend on what you're selling.
Yeah. And well, that's a very important point there. You mentioned about understanding what you're selling. And when we strip the whole idea of export services, there are definitely various ways to do so. So when it comes to coming up with a definition of export services and understanding the various modes, is that something you can expand a little bit more on, Lara?
I can, certainly, and I wrote it down just to make sure I got it right. So we know from our training that there are 4 modes. In fact, there's now a 5th one, right? We know that. So the 5th mode is now the servicification, yes, where services are embedded into goods. And that's something that we're all familiar with. Every good that is sold, whether it's a a widget that's got put onto a ship or a piece of equipment. There's services involved in that: design, IT, financial resources. There's a ton of services that go into just the creation and the product value chain as well. But there are 4 modes of export, and I'm going to read them to make sure I get them right. Mode 1 is what they call cross-border trade, which is from one territory to another territory. Mode 2 is consumption abroad, which is actually what I offer. That's my service delivery. So that is where the service is delivered in my country, but the customer is somewhere else. Okay. So that's essentially the client is consuming the service in another country, and I'm providing it locally. Mode 3 is commercial presence, and that is where you go to establish yourself, like Anthony has done, in another country to provide your service. It may be a subsidiary or a branch of many of our banks, of course, in the region operate this mode. And the 4th mode is the presence of persons. So that's where you may send a manager, a consultant, an expert in a particular part of your business to go and work with a client on a project in another country. So those are the 4 basic modes of trade that are recognized by the WTO and other trade organizations.
So would services like tourism, for example, fall into this category? Or let's say I'm doing crafts and I'm selling to tourists. Does that fall into this category?
Yeah, tourism actually covers a number of different categories, because definitely mode 2, because customers are coming here to consume your tourism product, but you're selling it to them abroad. They're booking abroad through a travel agent or a website or cruise agent or something like that. Excuse me. But it also includes you sending people abroad, perhaps to be your country representative. I mean, we know about embassies, but many travel agents have branches around the world. Remember Thomas Cook? Remember the days before the internet where you actually had to go into a travel agency to book a holiday?
Yes.
And you'd get brochures and, and it seems like 1,000 years ago, but it wasn't that far back in memory. So tourism is one of those products that covers a number of different modes depending on how it's delivered. Yes. But fundamentally it is, and of course, if it's a cruise ship, it's multiple destinations and so on. It's fundamentally, though, delivered in your country, but sold to foreign customers.
Yes. So we're seeing here, Anthony, that there are many businesses, SMEs already exporting, and they haven't realized it. They're bringing in foreign exchange. Any of these modes you see as an easy way step up for let's say I'm considering getting into exporting services? Which one of these modes do you think would be an easy step up for persons who want to get into this type of exporting?
Well, I think as Lara mentioned, it depends upon like the service which is being offered. So for instance, because of the proliferation of like the internet and globalization, I see, for example, like some industries, mode 1, cross-border trade and services, where they provide like a service in Trinidad, and then like it's consumed by another company or entity. That is quite possible because like we now have like very strong internet connection. So for instance, if you consider business process outsourcing, that is like one which is like taking place already. Also, there are other services such as like I know someone who's like has a digital marketing agency, and even 5 years ago he mentioned that he was working with clients in the US and Latin America, and then he was like looking for more clients in Europe, and that he just simply does the work and he sends it to them over the internet, and that's it. If you could consider about like the knowledge economy, ICT, that's something as well, like, like software programming and like software development. That's another one which I think is quite easy to do. Maybe not easy to do in the sense of like first having to, maybe a challenge to first get the clients, but then like once you get them, it's actually like something which like the service provider will be able to, I think, fulfill quite easily. Already, if you also think about it, that there's like more and more international jobs being completed via sites such as, like, you probably know Upwork, where you have I look today and you can see there's like loads of Trinidadians on Upwork who are offering their services via this platform.
Yes, I was actually just about to ask that.
It's so interesting because we redesigned our website during COVID and we sourced the talent through Upwork. I believe it was a girl in India eventually. And I have very mixed feelings because I like to buy local. I like to support local talent, but it literally was a quarter of the price.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So, you know, it's a challenge.
Yes. I've seen this quite a lot in local SMEs that want to get into game development. And I hear the complaint about the cost of getting a local provider, which brings another issue. Is it that you have to be ready to adjust your pricing, and is this feasible?
Well, that's what I think. You have to be competitive, right? So again, just to give my own example, we do a lot of work for multinationals. And so that means that they are in, you know, dozens of countries around the world. And typically when they engage a vendor of services like Regency, they will have what they call a master service agreement, an MSA. And that lays out their global terms. So they don't care whether you're in Trinidad, India, Toronto, it doesn't matter where you are, right? The terms and conditions apply universally. But that creates real problems for us, particularly with things like labor legislation, because that varies wildly from country to country, right? So just a very simple example, I may get an MSA from a client, this is with contract labor, that they have the right to terminate without notice. Now, we all know in Trinidad, you can't do that. That you end up in industrial court before you can even, you know, put your handbag on. So we often have to really push back to say, look, I can't sign this. I want to work for, you know, Coca-Cola or IBM or all these big giant companies because we love working for them. But sometimes you get really into, and you don't have a lot of power in that relationship because you're one of many providers. They can go to another provider who may or maybe sign it, you know, to hell with the risk. So we've had to, on a number of occasions, turn down work because I knew that signing the MSA would just expose us to too much risk.
Yes, too much risk. Yes, yeah. But I definitely believe that it's one of the areas, if we're thinking about an easy step up where they could begin to learn and understand the international trade and understand the issues, get involved in some of these sites. You know, there's Fiverr, Upwork, and all these various sites where you can put your services on, put yourself out there, and, you know, provide these services, but be ready to adjust, you know. But what we want to do, we want to take a short break because we want to get into what are the opportunities that exist, and to give some tips for persons who are considering making this jump into exporting services. So we're gonna just take a little break and hear a word from our sponsors, and we'll be right back.
Assuage Business Development Limited connects critical elements of the international value chain needed to develop and execute seamless go-to-market strategy for growth-focused SMEs. We help our clients identify new market opportunities, craft a strategy to capitalize on these opportunities, execute their go-to-market action plan, maintain and sustain market relevance, and sustain business growth. Contact us today. Call 868-310-8979.
Okay, thank you very much. And if you're listening, you're now joining, you're listening into the Korean Business Podcast, and we are discussing the topic of exporting services. And with us this evening, we have the esteemed Lara Quentrall-Thomas of Regency, Recruitment, and Anthony Brand of Coverpoint RCM in Belgium. So earlier before we broke, we were talking about the easy ways to step up. You know, what would you identify as the opportunities for service in terms of specific opportunities that service-based organizations or persons who want to get into the area can get into to be a part of the export service trade? And I'll show this one at Anthony.
Okay, cheers, Rawle. Well, I think that there are several opportunities exist. I think if you consider us in Trinidad and Tobago, and let's say like what some of our like natural skills and probably like advantages, I would say like one area in which like Trinidadian firms can consider exporting to the EU would be in the area of creative services. So like this is what we call like the orange economy. So if, for example, you consider like, you know, we are very, very innovative, we're very creative, just look at our carnival and like mass, etc. There's many carnivals around the world, including Europe. And like it's an opportunity for our mass designers and like person involved in making the mass and the logistics and the preparation to actually export their services to different cities across Europe, because like there are many cities that have a carnival, want to build a bigger, better carnival. And also not just carnival, but if you consider like costume design, there's like theater work, all these types of opportunities exist. And I think it's something which the EPA actually encourages, but of course, like it takes a while to get going. But it's something that we should continue to look at, definitely.
And to your point, Anthony, Marshall Montano performed in India today.
Yes,
in front of, I don't know, 1 billion people.
Yes.
And brought soca to India. I mean, he's a real outlier, but nevertheless extraordinary what he and many of our soca artists have gone out and performed. And actually, I love one of the things that I have loved most about the pandemic, and there's been a lot of horrible things, but there's also been some amazing things, are the Trini memes. I think if Trinidad could harness our meme creativity, I mean,
that's an industry
by itself. Within 30 seconds of a politician saying something, there's 20 memes on Facebook.
Yes,
I mean, we
yes.
have a gift. We have a gift for that humor in the
it's
darkness.
True. It's interesting you should say that, Lara. I always look at the late night television and all those programs and say, that satire is something that you don't see a lot of in that way in Trinidad and Tobago. And it was very interesting. I wondered if that's something that could happen here in the Caribbean. So
yeah,
true.
and we do have it. Is it the Rundown show? I think it's something.
Yes, the Rundown. Yes.
But I mean, we love to mock our politicians and our, business leaders and what have you. But I'm being a bit facetious. But I do agree with Anthony. I think the creative sector. But again, at TTCS, I was very involved in this during COVID because, of course, the creative sector just sort of stopped overnight, right? As did tourism, horribly, horribly impacted. But on the one hand, you've got a local content, a local product that you're very proud of and speaks to our history and our culture and so on. But people abroad don't necessarily want to buy it in the way you want to sell it. So I do think there's a certain amount of, you have to do your research. You have to understand how you may need to edit your product to speak to a different market. The same way advertisers know, if you're advertising a deodorant, you cannot use the same language in Latin America that you use in Northern Europe. Yes, right? It's a completely different market, even though the product is identical. So we have to learn how to edit our product for different marketplaces. I mean, I think one of our biggest opportunities is ecotourism. Trinidad is absolutely brimming with fantastic flora and fauna. And I mean, our potholes alone, you could have an entire tourism product based on potholes. But our heritage tourism is rich. But then we don't have, and I do think there's a lot of people very committed to growing that part of our economy, the tourism, heritage and ecotourism. And the silver economy is another huge opportunity. Services for senior citizens, health and wellness in the Caribbean.
Yes.
Why do we not have, multiple retirement facilities for the rich and elderly from the United States and Canada? I mean, what more gorgeous place would you want to retire?
Yes.
But we're not seeing the infrastructure. And just very quick story. I had a group of visitors a couple of years ago that I brought here, and we went to the Hanuman statue in central Trinidad. I love to take people on tours of Trinidad. I've been an expat here. I've lived here for 25 years and I'm very proud of it. Not a single public toilet for 3 hours from the hotel to the venue. Wow. Stray dogs in the car park, which always breaks the heart of every European. You have to go to a rum shop to use the toilets. I mean, it's those little things that really bring down the quality of what could be a beautiful product. I really think, and that's not something that we can do. That's government infrastructure, national trust, those kinds of things. But I do think that tourism and the different elements of tourism, not beaches, not sun, sea, sand, and sex, that's Tobago. I think Trinidad has massive potential there.
While we're on that topic of government agencies, definitely help is needed. We identify that you can't just jump out and begin to export services. There are steps, there are things, standards to be aware of. There's you refer to editing of your services and so forth. So where can SMEs turn to help? You know, you did mention the TTCSI and these types of organizations. So I'm an SME and I'm listening in right now, and it sparked my interest, and I want to get involved in this exporting services. Where can I turn to for help?
Well, Anthony, of course. Yes, call Anthony.
Indeed, one SMEs can turn to Coverpoint. We'll be happy to help. But within Trinidad and Tobago and within the Caribbean, there's like Export TT, there's like the TTCSI, there's Caribbean Export Development Agency, and like all these agencies and institutions are really geared towards like helping SMEs within the region develop their skills, develop their export plan, understand what are their unique selling points, to be able to like help them go out and like capture new international markets.
Yeah,
Yes.
I agree. And I would add, I totally agree. I would add, join your professional association.
Yes.
If you're an architect, engineer, ICT, tourism, marketing, everybody in Trinidad has a professional association. But your professional association is lobbying for whether it's trade agreements, or it gives you that sort of collective power, like we saw recently with the yachting sector here in Trinidad, which has been, again, horribly impacted by COVID. And through the TTCSI, the Yachting Services Association, on behalf of its member, lobbied and finally has got some money from the MTI to try and get the sector back on its feet. So you can't just be the only voice in the wilderness.
Yes.
You know, that sort of collaboration with other people in your sector, and I mean SMEs generally, whether it's women-owned businesses or, you know, whatever it is, find people in a similar space and work together to see the change, or to lobby for the change that you want.
Yeah, that's
Indeed.
excellent advice.
And I think it's really also important to like do like networking and to like really like seek the opportunities. Like, so for instance, we at Coverpoint will be like doing like some webinars and like podcasts where we like bring like European companies together with like Trinidadian like and other Caribbean firms, SMEs, to do business or to make that connection. We've also, what has been established recently is the Caribbean Chamber of Commerce Europe. That has been established since 2019, 2020, 2021, and it's functional now, and we're a part of it. And this is an organization which is there to also help support companies from the Caribbean that want to do business in Europe, and also from European companies that want to do business in the Caribbean, including Trinidad and Tobago. So I think that's quite interesting that we now have this organization, which, like as Lara mentioned, can do lobbying on behalf of groups of businesses.
Yes.
And we have, of course, in Trinidad, we have Eurocham here.
Eurocham,
so we have the reverse, in Trinidad. So I do think that, you know, finding ways to be involved with those groups. And one of my philosophies has always been, you know, if you're not at the table, you're probably on the menu.
Okay.
And by that, I mean that you've got to be in the room where decisions about your industry are being made.
Yes.
You know, and of course now, as you said, Anthony, with webinars, everything online, you can access so much information without leaving your house.
Yes.
To look at trends, to look at opportunities. I mean, I subscribe, as you mentioned, Caribbean Export. They have every time there's an opportunity to bid or submit an RFP, you get an email.
Yes.
Now, a lot of it is totally not my skill set, but every now and again, there's something that could apply to Regency.
That applies.
So you've got to subscribe to these things, be in the room where the sausage is made, right?
I love that one. Don't become a meal. You know, as we know with all good things, you know, we have to wrap up, and I'd like to take some closing remarks from you. You know, at Assuage, we definitely believe that there's a window of opportunity for service, any business really, service or otherwise, to get into the market and be a player either regionally or globally. There's a window, and pretty soon as this develops, it's going to be more difficult to enter. The bar to enter is going to be more difficult. So it's been lowered a bit with all the excitement about online activity. So now is the time, but clearly some businesses will be tentative, very fearful. I would just like your closing remarks in terms of advice. You know, what would be the one piece of advice that you would like to leave to any SME that's listening here, anywhere in the Caribbean, in terms of what they should do to take advantage of the service export opportunity? And maybe I'll begin with Lara.
Okay, thank you. Well, I think, as I said, you have to do your homework. You have to talk to people who have walked the path that you would like to walk, whether it's other businesses, whether it's business leaders, chambers of commerce, professional associations. You really do need to gather as much data as you can to feel confident about the risk that you're going to take, because it is a risk. You may have to invest money in intellectual property or branding or some of these other things. So, do your research, and I would suggest you start small. And again, as I said, start with the region and then grow out of there. But I would also close by saying that America is not the whole world. We're very now America. Yeah, it's got to be America. And as Anthony knows, there's Europe, there's Latin America, there's Australia, there's China, for God's sake. Learn Cantonese and export to China.
Yes.
And
even in Middle East now, is reaching out and opening up. Yeah, so
that's right. So the world is literally your oyster, but you've got to make sure you've got the right knife and fork.
Okay, thank you very much, Lara Quentrall-Thomas of Regency Recruitment, and dare I say international, because you are definitely an international and global firm. So, Anthony Brand, any closing remarks as we encourage SMEs to jump into the export services opportunity?
Indeed, thanks, Rawle. Well, I completely agree with Lara that SMEs need to do their homework. They need to develop their export plan. They need to think about why they want to export, what they hope to get out of it, what they plan to export, what are their unique selling points. But apart from the planning, in terms of, let's say, their attitude towards it, I think that SMEs really need to think big and go for it. And if you consider, we've been speaking about Marshall Montano tonight. I also saw a bit of his show. I made some notes about it for this meeting. Think back to Marshall Montano mid-1990s and the Ecstatic Circus. Remember that?
Yes.
Remember the Ecstatic Circus? And
I was very young then. I don't. That's probably. I don't think I was even living here then.
So he started off small, right? But always very innovative. Always very innovative. And you can see where that mindset and that attitude has led him today, where tonight normally it would be Trinidad Carnival Tuesday. He's not even here. Yes. He's in India performing in front of tens of thousands of people. We couldn't imagine that Marshall would not be here on a Carnival Tuesday, but he's somewhere else.
Yes.
So I think that SMEs need to really think about their product, but think about it in a big way. And I think as Lara mentioned, get a strong team behind you. Really get a strong team behind you. I see that already in working with Tobago Gold, which is not a service, it's a product. But I see how they've developed their team, and it's really strong. And I think that's one of the reasons why they're going to be successful internationally.
Yes, certainly they say teamwork makes the dream work. And we thank our guests for spending the time and sharing these tidbits with us. And I certainly like to close off this element of it. We want to talk to one other person who's in the export services sector. That's Personalized Quality Systems Limited. But before we go into it, just to close off to say, as Lara mentioned, if you're not at the table, did I get it right?
Yeah,
you're going to be on the menu. So with that, we want to close up this segment. Thank you very much to Lara and Anthony for sharing your expertise and time with us. So we'd like to turn over now to a special feature. As you would imagine, for any enterprise that's looking at exporting services, tightening up your enterprise and all the various things that you do on the back end is critical. A very important part of that would be your accounting practices and making sure that they are in line to give you the records that you want and give you the information you need to make the decisions as you step forward into the export services area. And with us tonight is Jason Thomas, consultant at Personalized Quality Systems Limited. So we're going to hear a little bit about Jason before we jump into a couple of questions with him before we wrap up.
Jason Thomas. Jason has a wealth of experience in training at the University of the West Indies. He has used his training experience and degree in management and sociology in implementing the smaller accounts packages for various businesses. He also has experience in implementing other integrated packages such as Sage 50, formerly Sage Peachtree, accounting as a Sage certified consultant, PeopleSoft, a human resources and payroll application, in designing web pages as a certified internet webmaster, and has brought these experiences to PQS. Since joining Personalized Quality Systems Limited in August 1998, he has implemented, conducted training in, and supported computerized accounting packages in over 30 companies.
Hello and welcome, Mr. Thomas. And can I call you Jason? I think I mentioned your name as Jason a little earlier. We on a first name basis?
We're on a first name basis.
Excellent. Nice to have you. It's a pleasure to have any regional player, any business that is making strides within the region in some way. Could you tell us a little bit more about Personalized Quality Systems Limited?
Well, PQS, as we like to call it, has been around for over 20 years. We started as being the support for businesses who could not afford an IT department. So we filled that gap, and over time we grew in terms of that service, specializing in the implementation of accounting, financial software, and moving into other bigger, larger packages, more integrated into the ERP realm. So we've been touching the different levels of software per se. So we do from one-person shops to multinational companies. So we've been engaging our clients at different levels.
Okay, great, excellent. No doubt you've had your own experience with providing your services abroad. How was that experience for PQSL?
It was interesting. Point being is that once you get accustomed working within your own realm, moving outside of that realm should feel like a natural step, but sometimes it isn't. And there are things that you really need to look out for and account for. Your earlier guests alluded to the research, and that research and understanding the different markets that you're going into is essential. And it's beyond essential, it's really required now, because you need that understanding of what part of the service is transferable into that market. So yes, for us, it was really a learning experience in terms of understanding that what was required in terms of transferability and understanding the transferability of the service.
Okay. So definitely with this in mind, we're speaking this evening to SMEs that are concerned about their local market and looking for new opportunities, and they want to expand. And some are considering going abroad, exporting their services abroad. Can you share how the services that PQS provides can be of importance and relevant to those persons who are looking to expand their businesses abroad?
Data is always important, and understanding your business and the cost and the relevance of your product is always important. And a lot of the times what we end up doing with a lot of clients is helping clients to really understand the intelligence behind the data. So it's not just about saying that you have a product or service that you want to take abroad. It's about understanding the implications, the cost, how costs impact, how the taxes abroad will impact, what are the logistical as well as the legal impediments to moving cross-border with your product. So we basically, would go through some of those aspects with the clients so that they have a better understanding, as well as not only what they're getting into, but in terms of what their data is telling them. So sometimes, for example, with COVID, the shipping costs increase. If you're importing raw materials, what does that mean? What does the data tell you in terms of what your cost will be, as well as what your price will be? And understanding those little things in terms of forecasting for the next 6 months are important if you're going to take a decision now to enter into a new market. So it's all about understanding the environment and the data that you currently possess in your system to make the best decisions for your organization.
Okay, yes, there's so much said now about analytics and understanding big data, and having this data drive your decisions and so forth. So I guess this would be very critical and important to this particular time, So as we wrap up this little small segment here, you have no doubt many years of experience in supporting a range of organizations, small and large, here and within the Caribbean. What would be 3 pieces of advice that you would want to leave for SMEs who are considering stepping into this this arena and exporting services? What would be 3 things that you'd like to share and leave with them to help them encourage them make that leap?
3 things. It's the thing about that question is it comes like you're following Dr. Martin Luther King's speech. I mean, you had 2 panelists on before that kind of laid out everything for you in terms of, understanding doing the research, understanding what you're getting into, having that backing in terms of having a support network that you can move with in a new environment, as well as, and I would like to add, as part of your research, understanding the culture. And I think Lara alluded to it when she says, they change the names in terms of how the ad is presented in different countries. And that has, for a large part, to do with the culture of the country that you're entering. So you need to also understand that where you're going to is not Trinidad. And the things that we assume in Trinidad is not the things that we assume elsewhere. So,
Yes.
It's really to understand that that culture, as well as your working environment, your legal environment that you're moving into.
Okay, excellent. So thank you very much, Mr. Thomas. So for SMEs who would like to get onto you to hear a little bit more about how you can help the various software packages that you have to help them on the accounting side, how can they get on to you at PQSL?
Or they can visit our website at www.pqsys.com, and on the contact us page, you'll find numbers for everyone in the UK.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Thomas, for sharing these insights into PQSL and how they can help SMEs that are considering, and maybe you're already doing it, already in the export services area, and you need to show up the accounting area. Definitely want to check out Personalized Quality Systems Limited. They have a lot they can share and help you with. Thank you very much. So, of course, capacity building is a very important part of preparing yourself with the skill sets that you need to move forward. And we'd like to hear a little word from one of our sponsors who in this area provides professional services in the area of administration and marketing, and that's Launchpad Consultancy. So we're going to learn a little bit about them, and then when we come back, we're going to wrap up this evening's podcast. Yes, so that's Launchpad Consultancy. You want to check them out for your marketing and admin support. So all good things come to an end. We've had a great podcast session this evening looking at the whole area of exporting services. We'd like to thank our guests, Lara Quentrall-Thomas of Regency Consultancy, Anthony Brand of Coverpoint RCM in Belgium, and Jason Thomas of PQSL. Of course, we'd like to thank our producer, LSC Publications, and our sponsors, Assuage, VisionWorks, as well as Launchpad Consultancy. Upcoming, we have quite a lot of important topics that we know will help encourage you to make the next step towards becoming an exporter, or maybe improving your access to regional markets and beyond. Some of these include areas where we focus on various countries and the opportunities that exist there, steps to exporting your services, how to develop an export plan, how to finance your plan, as well as how do you build regional networks. So check us out using @ABDL on our LinkedIn, YouTube, or Facebook pages. Please do like and share. and to contribute to our discussion, maybe you want to be there's something you want to share, you want to be a part, you can also reach out to us via email at assuagebdc@gmail.com. That's assuagebdc@gmail.com. So thank you very much for tuning in. So until next time, think regional and act global.